Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work. In terms of pursuing your interests as well, in a world where everyone tries to ride the coattails of the latest trend, especially younger artists trying to figure out their groove, and they see what other people are doing on Instagram as their main source of inspiration, which can be deadly, slippery slope. I would love for you to speak to how important it is to pursue your interests in your work, not only owning your experiences, but pursuing your interests, and how that helps you tap into your authentic artistic voice.
Yeah, so it's one of the most common questions I get from people is, especially people who are new to the creative process. Maybe they have a lot of talent already, and maybe they have a lot of drive, but they're not sort of like super open creatively because maybe they think, well, I should be making art that looks like this, or if I'm going to make it as an artist, I need to follow these trends, right? Or I'm going to, I need to do this, or I feel stumped because the things that I feel like I should be drawing and painting or hand lettering are not the things that I really want to. I'm not really sure what to paint or draw. Like, I just don't know where to start. And my advice to people, and this, I talk about this a lot in my book, which is called Find Your Artistic Voice. One of the places to start that I recommend is literally diving into what you are fascinated by and interested in the world in general. The basis for everybody's creative journey, for everybody's artwork, no matter what your artwork looks like, it always starts with what's interesting to you. And sometimes that's super simple stuff like beautiful things you see out in the world that you want to draw. Or sometimes it's more complex things like things you dreamt about the night before or things that are part of your imagination. It can be anything from food to books you've read to things that you're sort of obsessing over on the internet, the stuff that you find yourself Googling. It's maybe something in history, or it's, you know, uh, some weird rabbit hole that you're going down. And that's the stuff that you make art about, is the stuff that's interesting to you, because that's the stuff that's going to keep that's both going to keep you more engaged, right? Because if you're making art around, or your creative process is driven by the stuff or inspired by the stuff that's fascinating to you and interesting to you, you're going to stay more engaged. And also you're going to end up making work that's different than anybody else's, because your interests, you might have overlap in terms of what's interesting to you, but your interests are unique to you, and that's going to help you make work and develop subject matter for your work that is unique to you. And that is when you're sort of trying to figure out who you are as an artist or make work that stands out, focusing on the stuff that's interesting to you is super important. Now, that's not to say that what you're interested in isn't also potentially currently trendy, right?
Yes.
A lot of the stuff I'm interested in ends up being stuff that other people are also making work about. And that's normal, because in the world, there's like a zeitgeist of ideas, right? Like certain things become trendy or popular or interesting in terms of like thinking or visual stuff that's out in the world. That's completely normal. But really focusing so that, don't trip if what the work you're making also falls in the trend category. Actually, you're lucky if that's true, because, trends matter. But really focusing on what you find yourself thinking about and using that as the fodder for whatever it is you make work about, I think is like one of the very important steps in like finding your creative voice.
Another thing that's been like crucial for me is connecting with all the weird shit I loved as a kid.
Yes.
That seems to like really repeat in patterns with the things I love today. Like I was obsessed growing up with outer space and aliens and
Yes.
pizza. Like I drew pizza every day because like Macaulay Culkin, A Lovely Cheese Pizza Just for Me, and Home
Yeah.
Alone, or Ninja Turtles was my jam. And all those patterns, I'm like, wow, that's like shows up. And the bullying makes where did this positive side of me and my work
Yes,
come from? It came from me as a kid getting bullied, so it's
that's
like
right.
connecting those dots.
It's
And
all your
yeah,
own experience, and you're
yes,
taking
right
that
back
and
to that.
owning it. It's like your story. I don't know if you know Andy Miller, but he also like
Big fan of Andy.
ton of his work is inspired by the stuff he was obsessed with as a kid. And that's not the stuff to reject. That's the stuff to dive into, especially if it's still fascinating to you.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.